Alrighty, hello. Good evening. Welcome back to the Law Entrance YouTube channel and to another session of the Hindu analysis. Today is 5th of February, Thursday, and we are live. How many of you are here on the stream? Can we have some responses in the chat, please? If you guys have joined, Shara is here, Charvi is here. Good evening. Parth is here. All right. ठीक है, चलो, let's begin our discussion. Siddhi is also here. Good evening. Let's start off with the agenda for the day. चार articles हैं, चार interesting articles हैं आज on the PPT, which we'll discuss. First one is regarding the removal of President's rule from Manipur and the appointment of the new Chief Minister. So we'll discuss that important article. Then we have more updates on the trade deal with the US. Our foreign minister has gone to US. And we'll also talk about Pax Silica. Then there is an article on denotified tribes on how they want a separate census for them. And then some more updates on the trade deal. This is essentially an editorial article. So these are the things which we're going to discuss today on the PPT. Roni Rocks is here. Namaste Ji. Mafia Gaming is here. Good evening. Chalo, let's begin our discussion. Aradhya is also here. Hello. Let's start off with the newspaper. Let me open the newspaper for you all. Okay, so this is the Hindu newspaper, 5th of February, Thursday, the Delhi edition. And we start off with the first article, the most important one. Manipur president's rule ends. Khemchand is now the new CM. His name is Yumnam Khemchand Singh. And who was the previous CM of Manipur? Before the president's rule was imposed, can you guys quickly tell me in the chat box who was the erstwhile chief minister? So now this BJP-led NDA government, National Democratic Alliance government, has taken charge in Manipur, and this brings end to almost 1 year of president's rule. It started on 13th of February 2025. The date is important, and the government was revoked. Now the new chief minister is Mr. Yumnam Khemchand Singh, who's also a BJP leader, also a former assembly speaker, and he was sworn in as the CM by the governor of Manipur. Who's the governor? Mr. Ajay Kumar Bhalla. Also super important to remember the name. Now, talking about the background, he's the second chief minister since the assembly elections, and he represents the constituency of Singh Jamei, Singjamei, Singh Jamei constituency से आते हैं ये. And Biren Singh resigned on 9th of February because of ethnic violence, which began almost 2.5 years ago, around May 3rd, 2023. Deputy chief ministers bhi rahe hain is beach. Nemcha Kikpen is one of them. Losi Dikho is one of them. And some other ministers have also been shown in, primarily from the BJP. So yeah, that's the update regarding this article. बाकी थोड़ी और details हम समझेंगे president's rule की on the PPT. What's going on in the chat box? Biren Singh is the right answer. Jaishankar meeting will discuss why did all the important news happen this week. Maybe Lenin was on to something with his, there are decades where weeks happen and weeks where decades happen. That's quite an interesting quote. Yes, Biren Singh is the right answer. 2023 was when the ethnic conflict started. On the right-hand side, we have a tragic news. 3 minor girls jump off balcony when they were denied using phones. It's quite scary to see how dependent and how attached we have become to our smartphones. Note was found which said true life story, whatever is written in this diary, all of that is true. Read it now. Sorry, Papa, I'm really sorry. Okay, that's sad. City-based news is not important. We'll move ahead. Also, just to remind you guys, today we have a special session on law as a career option and what are the different entrance exams, law entrance exams, which you can appear for. So I would suggest that you know of this would start right after the Hindu analysis, 75, 8:50 p.m. That is what we'll be discussing. So you can ask all your questions related to law as a career, related to law school, related to law entrance exams, and I would definitely help you with the answers. Karnataka adopts resolution for restoration of the Manrega. Oh my God, this dog is. भैया गौरव भाई ये डॉग को थोड़ा सा चुप करा दो. Sorry guys. क्या बात कर रहे थे हम? Karnataka adopts resolution for restoration of the Manrega scheme. Now we all know on a national level the Manrega is being replaced by the Viksit Bharat GRAMG Act, which is the Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika Mission Gramin Act. Now the Karnataka government is bringing a resolution in their state legislative assembly opposing the repeal of Manrega. They are saying that Manrega guaranteed 100 days of wage employment to rural households, and the new scheme is not in the favor of these rural households. So देखते हैं resolution pass होता है या नहीं होता. The speaker allowed the debate on the resolution. The opposition walked out of it, जिसमें BJP and JDS के members थे. The resolution was passed through a voice vote, with the opposition being absent. अब आगे देखते हैं whether this finally becomes thing in Karnataka, where they still opt for the older Manrega. They say the opposition had ample opportunities to discuss and defend it, but it failed to do so. The Deputy CM Shiv Kumar says. Who's the Chief Minister of Karnataka? Can you guys quickly tell me in the chat box? Who's the current CM in Karnataka? SIR exercises turning voters to living dead, says Kamal Hassan. He's an actor turned member of parliament on the party MNM. यहाँ पे MNM रैपर का नाम नहीं है, इनकी पार्टी का नाम है मक्कल निधि मय्यम. That is the name of his party. ठीक है. BJP steps back on their demand for Jammu statehood and they resist divisional status for Pir Panjal. Pir Panjal is a mountain range which is found across Jammu Kashmir and Himachal. एंड यहाँ पे बीजेपी ने पहले बोला था कि भाई हम सोचेंगे जम्मू कश्मीर के स्टेटहुड के बारे में, बट अब जो है दे आर बैकिंग आउट ऑफ इट. दे आल्सो अपोज ग्रांटिंग सेपरेट डिविजनल स्टेटस टू द पीर पंजाल वैली, जिसमें आपके जम्मू कश्मीर के राजौरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट आता है, पूंछ डिस्ट्रिक्ट आता है. द रीजन विच दे आर गिविंग इज दैट JNK should remain one unified entity because of its historical unity. Who was the ruler of JNK? Do you guys remember who's the ruler of JNK who signed the papers to keep Jammu and Kashmir in Indian territory during the partition? एक राजा थे, महाराजा थे जम्मू एंड कश्मीर के, जिन्होंने कहा था हम इंडिया को ज्वाइन करेंगे, पाकिस्तान को नहीं ज्वाइन करेंगे. पहले तो उन्होंने कहा था हम इंडिपेंडेंट रहेंगे, बट फिर आवर आयरन मैन Atal Bihari Vajpayee convinced him, and then he said that okay, we'll join India. We're talking about Maharaja Hari Singh of Jammu and Kashmir, the last ruler of that princely state. तो थोड़ी सी हिस्ट्री अगर आप पढ़ोगे तो आपको ये पता होगा. And they said that there was historical unity under Maharaja Hari Singh, and even PAOK is a part of JNK in principle. बाकी लीडर ऑफ अपोजिशन ने कहा कि they would not allow any regional division, arguing that this would threaten the historical and cultural unity of JNK. He said that the Pir Panjal Valley does not exist as a division, and this was earlier known as the Chandrabhaga division, which also caused some outrage in the house and divisive remarks. तो यही सारी चीज़ें चल रही हैं. काफ़ी टाइम से ये लोग स्टेटहुड की डिमांड कर रहे हैं. लद्दाख भी स्पेशल प्रोविजंस की डिमांड कर रहे हैं. सोनम वांगचुक जेल में बैठे हैं. That's what's going on. ठीक है जी, आगे चलते हैं हम लोग. आई मेंट सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल, नॉट अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी. यूनिटी ऑफ इंडिया के लिए जिन्होंने काम किया, ब्रिंगिंग ऑल द प्रिंसली स्टेट्स टुगेदर, उनको भी कहते हैं आयरन मैन. चैट में क्या चल रहा है? स्टेट गवर्नमेंट जस्ट अलाउड टू डू समथिंग व्हाट कर्नाटका डिड? यस, दे आर अलाउड. जैसे आप लोगों ने सुना होगा, वेस्ट बंगाल जो है, काफ़ी सारी जो सेंटर की स्कीम्स हैं उनको नहीं फॉलो करता, अपने स्कीम्स फॉलो करता है. बहुत टाइम तक उन्होंने आयुष्मान भारत जो हेल्थ वाली स्कीम थी उसको ऑप्ट आउट नहीं किया था, अभी भी नहीं किया, आई थिंक. सो या दैट इज डेफिनेटली अलाउड. Bhavishya is saying, is 92 a good score in mocks? Yes, at this stage, it's a very good score in mocks. Sora is saying, Doggy Bhai is back. Yes. Overall, the center on budget issues. Rather saying your score depends on how many questions you attempted. 1992 the top score है, सही बात है. It is a good score. Problem is current affairs, as I'm in a boarding school. Abhi you have time for current affairs. Nothing to worry. Walkouts getting too frequent. Siddharamaiah is the right answer. Karnataka CM. 75, 77 in other sections. That's good. That's pretty good. Okay, that's some strong language. Current affairs, F's it all. Please refrain from such language, यार. यूट्यूब का एल्गोरिथम जो है पसंद नहीं करता ऐसी अभद्र भाषा को. आई मीन, आई रिस्पेक्ट द सेंटिमेंट. Workouts are a good thing. They're being done for turning minor issues into headlines. Raja Hari Singh is right answer. ठीक है. भविष्य सिंह सर हेलो. अरे ठीक है, देख लेता हूँ मैं चैट बॉक्स. Okay. Yes, 1992 is a good marks. Definitely good marks. Somebody was saying, why are the details of US India trade deal so vague? Because it has not been formalized yet. It's just in talks of the two leaders. They have not put down formal terms of engagement. अभी डील पे कोई formalized policy नहीं बनी है, साइन भी नहीं हुई है. मोस्टली मिड मार्च के आसपास साइन होना है इसने. करेंगे हम थोड़ी सी बात आज यूएस ट्रेड डील की. हाउ टू प्रिपेयर फॉर स्टैटिक करंट अफेयर्स. ये तो काफी ऑक्सीमोरॉनिक बात हो गई. स्टैटिक जीके बोलते हैं हम उसको. करंट अफेयर्स तो स्टैटिक नहीं होते, करंट अफेयर्स आर डायनामिक. बट योर क्वेश्चन इज स्टैटिक जीके, तो उसके लिए यू कैन यूज एनी स्टैंडर्ड बुक. बहुत सारी पब्लिकेशंस की आती हैं. सीएल के मॉड्यूल्स हैं, देन यू हैव ल्यूसेंट जीके, अरिहंत जीके, पियर्सन जीके, कोई सी भी ले लो. टेक एनी वन. पीडीएफ भी मिल जाता है सबका आजकल तो ऑनलाइन. सो या स्टिक टू एनी स्टैंडर्ड बुक एंड टू द इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक्स. लूसेंट इज डिसेंट. ठीक है, चलो लेट्स मूव अहेड. आज हमारे पास बहुत कुछ है करने को, और उसके बाद हमें एक और सेशन भी करना है. क्रिश्चियन मुस्लिम बॉडीज हेल ऑर्डर बाय इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट अलाउइंग प्रेयर्स ऑन प्राइवेट लैंड विदाउट परमिशन. ठीक है, दिस इज ऑल पॉलिटिक्स. दिस इज नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर अस. Okay, we move to the editorial section, the budget and the imperative of fiscal consolidation. Fiscal is related to the economy, the finances of the economy. Consolidation is things coming together. And we have discussed the budget in utmost detail already. This article talks about how a large part of spending in the budget is focused on sectors like artificial intelligence, biopharma, semiconductors, critical minerals. And he says the concern is not the intent of the government, but the implementation speed and effectiveness of bringing these measures to life. So he talks about how expenditure priorities have changed in this particular budget, how capex trends have been changing, how revenue and tax concerns are changing, increasing ease of doing business, improving export readiness for India, and how this would impact the states and the finance commission. We talk about devolution, we talk about the 16th finance commission, and how the total transfer to states have declined as compared to the 15th finance commission. He talks about the fiscal consolidation concerns, on how the pace of reducing our fiscal deficit is slowing down. Fiscal deficit is the difference between how much the government earns and how much the government spends. And because the government spends more, earns less, it's called a deficit. That's the fiscal deficit. And fiscal deficit, jitna kam ho, the lesser it is, the better for the economy. But the pace of reducing this fiscal deficit is slowing down, is what he points out in this particular article. And we are shifting our targeting from fiscal deficit to debt to GDP ratio, which has its pros and cons. We will not get into the details of the macroeconomics, but yahan pe the thing which he spells out is we need more transparency. We need a 5-year path for fiscal deficit, and we also need to look at our FRBM targets and debt targets. So वही सारी चीजें हैं यहाँ पे, आप लोग पढ़ सकते हो आर्टिकल. वैसे तो हम मैक्सिमम चीजें यहाँ पे डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. Then you have the left hand side, the BJP manages internal unity in Manipur. The state still awaits it. Internal unity मतलब political unity की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे. And they talk about how the president's role has ended, and इसको अगर एक्सटेंड करना होता है प्रेसिडेंट रूल को, तो आपको एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल लाना पड़ता है, तो उसको अवॉइड करने के लिए जो है प्रेसिडेंट रूल अभी हटा दिया गया. दैट्स द रियल रीजन बिहाइंड इट. एंड ही टॉक्स अबाउट हाउ द ऑथर टॉक्स अबाउट हाउ देयर इज अ रिटर्न ऑफ एन इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट विद मिस्टर YK Singh, Khemchand Singh, becoming Manipur's 13th chief minister, along with different deputy chief ministers, Nemcha Kipgen and Losi Dikho. One of them is from the Kuki committee, one of them is from the Naga community, Naga People's Front, which is another ally of BJP. And this is a approach or a attempt to show inclusiveness and balance कि भाई आपने एक कम्युनिटी से सीएम बना दिया, दो अलग कम्युनिटी से डेप्टी सीएम्स बना दिए. सो पॉलिटिकल कैलकुलेशंस उन्होंने कर लिए, जिससे जो है एटलीस्ट इंटरनल पॉलिटिक्स थोड़ी सॉर्टेड रहे, इंटरनल डायनेमिक्स जो है थोड़े सॉर्टेड रहे. लेकिन reconciliation between the cookies and meaties is still a concern. Security is still a concern. Violent incidents are still happening. We recently saw an execution of a meaty man recently who was visiting his cookie wife. So these armed radical groups are still operational in Manipur, and BJP has not been very successful in bringing peace between the two communities. Cookies are still demanding a separate administration, which this author calls impractical and destabilizing. And he says that, lasting peace ke liye we need more on ground efforts rather than symbolic representation. We need more inclusive dialogue. We need all political parties and civil society groups to come together and rebuild the trust and address this trauma, address this deep displacement which exists between the two tribes, the two communities, Cookies and the Meaties. ठीक है जी, चलो आगे चलते हैं हम लोग. The US trade deal gains from economic diplomacy. This will discuss on the PPT. क्या क्या चीजें यहाँ पे डिस्कस करी गई हैं. Industry must use the opportunities that the US trade deal presents. On the left-hand side, you see generations apart, despite being separated by 16 years. Djokovic fought as an equal with Alcaraz, who recently won the Australian Open and completed a career slam, which we have already discussed. Career slam मतलब सारे 4 Grand Slams जीतना अपने career में. He's the world number 1 currently. He's from Spain. Defeated Djokovic, who's from Serbia. Women's में Rybakina won against Sabalenka. That was about the Australian Open, right? नेक्स्ट अप, अ टर्निंग पॉइंट फॉर न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस. यहाँ पे हम बात कर रहे हैं ट्रीटी की विच एग्जिस्ट बिटवीन द US एंड रशिया. And the author talks about how there is a breakdown of trust between Europe and US, which has shaken the foundations of NATO, which is a military alliance, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, we all know. And the trigger was the Greenland issue, Trump's pressure over Greenland, which is a territory of which country? A country which is also a NATO member. Greenland किसके कंट्रोल में आता है, जल्दी से बताओ चैट बॉक्स में. So now Europe does not really trust US as a security guarantor. NATO की बात करें तो it was formed in 1949 as a US-led alliance, a nuclear alliance, to protect Europe from USSR, from Soviet Union. And they depended heavily on the trust in US nuclear guarantees because US was the biggest nuclear power. But now US itself is bullying the NATO ally, which is Denmark, and violating NATO's core principle. So they talk about the last remaining US-Russia nuclear arms control treaty, which we also call the New START treaty, which is expiring this year. And अगर ये treaty की limits नहीं रहेंगी तो फिर nuclear stockpiling बढ़ जाएगी, nuclear arsenals की quantity बढ़ जाएगी, which could again lead to drastic consequences. So now Europe is kind of at a crossroads. Europe फंस गया है कि भाई यूएस पे भरोसा कर नहीं सकते, यूएस के बिना आगे अपनी डिफेंस स्ट्रैटेजी कैसे बनाई जाए, हाउ टू मूव टुवर्ड्स न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस without fully relying on the US. And they're talking about how the NPT, after the NPT, since the NPT rather, threats to global security have changed. NPT से मतलब हमारा न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन ट्रीटी, which essentially states that आप न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स को, न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी को वेपन्स के लिए नहीं डेवलप करोगे, safe uses के लिए डेवलप करोगे एनर्जी एंड ऑल. And now global security has changed. We are looking at terrorism, we are looking at climate change, we are looking at economic inequality, we are looking at regional conflicts, and nuclear weapons cannot solve these problems. Although they are a security guarantee, but they're not a solution to this. So deterrence is a thing which is now under question. It's now uncertain. तो बस यही सारी बातें यहाँ पे हो रही हैं कि कैसे न्यूक्लियर आर्सेनल्स बढ़ रहे हैं हर कंट्री के, चाइना के, यूके के एंड यूएस रशिया वगैरह के. एंड हाउ वी नीड टू टेक लेसन्स फ्रॉम यूक्रेन. यूक्रेन रशिया वाली वीडियो अगर आप लोगों ने देखी हो तो आप लोगों को पता होगा कि यूक्रेन ने एक ट्रीटी साइन करी थी जिसमें दे gave up their nuclear arsenals. Ukraine was a nuclear power back then, but they compromised and they sort of made a treaty कि भाई रशिया कभी उन पर अटैक नहीं करेगा और इस शर्त के बदले वो अपने न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स छोड़ देंगे, which we all saw how that turned out to be and how Ukraine is now at a disadvantageous position. So they are contemplating what can be the next possible steps which protects Europe. That is what we are discussing here. ठीक है जी. Next up, issues surrounding the UGC regulations. This we already discussed. Let's read the gist of this. The Supreme Court stays the UGC regulations, citing ambiguity and possible misuse, and keeps the 2012 regulations in force. Dispute arises from the definition of caste-based discrimination limited to SC, ST, OBC, which is alleged to be biased and lacking safeguards against false complaints. It raises questions on equality, Article 14, 15, and a separate definition for caste-based discrimination in higher education. Chat box में क्या चल रहा है? Yes, Budapest Memorandum, absolutely correct. That's what the Ukraine signed. Denmark is the right answer. Chat में और कोई questions हैं? Anirudh is here. What exactly is CAPEX? CAPEX is capital expenditure. In easy words, this means spending money on building infrastructure, on building things which can generate capital for you, which can serve as capital or assets for you. So for example, investing in roads, investing in highways, investing in hospitals, investing in schools, that is capital expenditure. In short, CAPEX. Okay. Manthan 2.0 updated. Okay. Gopal, you can write to support अगर कोई इशू आ रहा है तो support@careerlauncher.com. उसके तो नोट्स बनाते बनाते खत्म हो जाता है इंसान. शौर्य सिंह, अच्छी बात है. It's exhaustive, it's detailed. Yes, the Friday mentee topic is political science. That's correct. Political science तो नहीं बोलेंगे, polity बोलेंगे उसको. Political science थोड़ा सा और broad word हो जाता है. Indian polity. ठीक है. What else do we have? What uses a bomb you specifically are not allowed to use? It serves as a deterrent कि भाई मेरे पास बॉम्ब है, मेरे पे हमला मत करना वरना मैं आप पे बॉम्ब गिरा दूंगा. That is how it operates. What is a good percentile for now? It depends on where you have started your journey. Everyone would have a different sort of starting point. But if you're getting above 80, 85 percentile, you're on the right track. Try to push for 90, try to push for 95. What is a polity and what will we be doing in it? Polity is just how the Indian political ecosystem functions. What is the background of it? What is the executive? What is the judiciary? What is the legislature? How do these three branches work? What is the role of the president, vice president, prime minister, council of ministers? What are the various provisions which we see in the parliament? No confidence motion, vote of thanks, etc., etc. These are the things which we see in polity. How was the Indian constitution formed? What was the constituent assembly? What was their principles? Who was the chairman, etc., etc. ये सब polity का part है. Indian Pakistan both have them, but they always get into fights. They get into fights, but the reason it does not escalate into a full-fledged war is the nuclear deterrence. छोटे मोटे फाइट लगे रहते हैं, बट अगर एक कंट्री के पास न्यूक्लियर प्रोटेक्शन नहीं होगा तो फिर वॉर का रिस्क बढ़ जाएगा ना. दैट इज वाई. चलो आगे चले. Let's move ahead. Why are Meta and WhatsApp facing a judicial ultimatum? This we also discussed recent few classes. Supreme Court questions Meta's business model, holds that consent in a monopolistic WhatsApp ecosystem may be coercive, and shifts the debate from privacy to the value and rent sharing of user data. This stems from WhatsApp's 2021 take it or leave it privacy policy and CCI's finding of abuse of dominance. The NCLAT's partial relief. NCLAT is the company law appellate tribunal to Meta and court's warning of very strict conditions unless data sharing stops. Science versus religion. This you can read if you want to. SIR is a process of deletion, not inclusion, says Bengal CM. Trinmul hails Mamta's Supreme Court appearance. Supreme Court asks if the government can reconsider Wangchuk's detention because of his failing health. Ladakh leaders press for statehood, talks with Home Ministry inconclusive. High drama in Lok Sabha, PM speech delayed amid ruckus. You can see the opposition protesting, saying PM is compromised. We already discussed this in the past two classes. Will notify questions on caste for censors as per norms. Is the government. Agriculture and dairy sectors protected in India-US trade deal. This we discussed yesterday as well. Sensitive sectors for India are protected. Our Commerce Minister tells the Parliament. Shankar Rubio welcome trade deal. Discuss critical minerals and Quad cooperation. Quad is a alliance of four countries. Which four countries? Jaldi se batao in the chat box. Quad has four members. Who are the four members of Quad? इसकी हम बात करेंगे जयशंकर रूबियो वाले डिस्कशन की ऑन द पीपीटी. Minister's statement lacks substance and clarity, says Congress. This is the statement by ये ऊपर वाला पीयूष गोयल. Kharge wants center of farm protest against deal with US. Denotified tribe seeks constitutional recognition and separate census entry. We'll talk about this on the PPT. What are denotified tribes? Why are they demanding separate census entry and recognition? Sociologist with rigorous scholarship who laid emphasis on importance of field work. So this is a person who's a sociologist and writer who passed away. Andre Betel passed away at 91. Indian cities could see far higher temperature rise than projected. Okay. Willingness to pay up may not save bank scam colluders. Colluders मतलब जो साथ में मिलके कोई crime commit करते हैं. Supreme Court flays delay in filing cases, directs the ED to constitute SITs, Special Investigation Team. Task force calls for fair, dispassionate probe into the nexus, connivance, conspiracy and collusion. चारों का मतलब एक ही होता है, मिली भगत. चार वर्ड लिख दिए हैं एक साथ. Nexus मतलब भी वही होता है, connivance भी वही, conspiracy is साजिश, collusion is also working together. So yeah, I think the title is fairly clear. इसमें और ज़्यादा कुछ detail नहीं है. IT stocks slump मतलब go down on Anthropic tool launch. Anthropic is an AI company which has launched a tool जिससे आप बहुत सारे automations बना सकते हो, जिससे आप बहुत सारी IT जो needs हैं अपनी वो उसी app के through fulfill कर सकते हो. Let's read the name of it. Sentiment in the sector deteriorated after AI startup Anthropic unveiled an end-to-end workflow automation productivity tool, rekindling concerns that rapid advances in AI could disrupt traditional software business models. ठीक है, इसका नाम नहीं लिखा क्या यहाँ पे? What's the name of this? Let me check. ठीक है, कोई अलग से आई थिंक नाम नहीं दिया है इन्होंने इसको कहीं पे भी. आई कांट रियली फाइंड अ सेपरेट नेम, बट एंथ्रोपिक इज द सेम कंपनी विच runs the Claude software. Claude सुना होगा आपने. It's just like ChatGPT, another AI LLM software. So that is the company. ठीक है, आगे चलते हैं. यूएस ईरान कंफर्म टॉक्स अमिड फ्लेयर अप ओवर ड्रोन डाउनिंग. तो ईरान कह रहा है कि अरेबियन सी में उनका एक ड्रोन उड़ रहा था जो यूएस ने मार के गिरा दिया. उसके अराउंड जो है फिर थोड़ी सी गर्मा गर्मी हो गई. एंड वी ऑल नो ईरान और यूएस की थोड़ी सी टेंशंस चल ही रही हैं काफ़ी टाइम से. एंड नाउ दे आर प्रपोजिंग रिन्यूड टॉक्स as the military tensions are increasing, especially in the Arabian Sea and the Strait of Hormuz, which is a water body which passes around Iran. दोनों साइड से मिलिट्री प्रेशर बढ़ रहा है. ईरान की फॉरेन मिनिस्ट्री कह रही है कि हम जो है टॉक्स के लिए तैयार हैं, वेन्यू वगैरह भी अनाउंस करेंगे. डोनाल्ड ट्रंप भी कह रहे हैं नेगोशिएशंस चल रही हैं. ईरान वांट्स टू अवॉइड अनदर मिलिट्री स्ट्राइक लाइक ऑपरेशन मिडनाइट हैमर जो यूएस ने लास्ट ईयर किया था ईरान पे. ऑपरेशन मिडनाइट हैमर आप सबको याद होगा. And yeah, US के एक special envoy हैं Steve Witkoff, who is going to meet Iranian officials. I was telling you, US military ने एक drone shoot down किया है इनका near the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, जो US का एक aircraft carrier है. It was approaching the carrier while it was about almost 700-800 किलोमीटर away from Iran's coast. उसके अलावा दो ईरानियन बोट्स जो हैं उनको सीज करने का अटेम्प्ट किया था यूएस ने. दैट आल्सो हैपेंड. तो यार ये सारी चीज़ें चल रही हैं अभी यूएस और ईरान के बीच में. चैट देख लेते हैं एक बार. Yes, that is called. Where is Sonam Wangchuk currently in jail? I think somewhere in Rajasthan. We'll have to check the city. बट उन पे एनएसए लगा हुआ है अभी नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एक्ट के अंडर. इज बीन इन जेल फॉर ऑलमोस्ट 5 months now. Does India possess hydrogen bombs? Not that I am aware of. I don't think so. US, Australia, Japan, India, these form the Quad. It is under Claude. हाँ वही मुझे लगा. नहीं, आई डोंट थिंक इट्स कॉल्ड क्लॉड कोवर्क. हो सकता है. आई हैव टू चेक. अलग से नाम दिया नहीं हुआ है कहीं पे. एंथ्रोपिक तो नेम ऑफ द कंपनी है सारा, वो तो लिखा ही है. आई वाज सीइंग कि अगर इन्होंने टूल को कोई डिफरेंट नाम दिया है कि नहीं. Here you see Nicolas Maduro's ouster Trump's oil blockade push Cuba to the brink. We all know Cuba is super dependent on Venezuela for a lot of things. And वहाँ पे अब acute oil crisis हो गया है. 15-20 दिन का ही oil बचा है उनके पास at current consumption levels. And अगर उनका oil खत्म हो जाएगा तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें रिस्क पे आ जाएंगी. Power supply, food security, basic daily life, potentially the existence of the livelihood for the people. So वी ऑल नो कि क्या हुआ. निकोलस मडूरो को उठा के ले गई यूएस मिलिट्री एंड फिर एक नेवल ब्लॉकेड इन्होंने लगा दिया वेनेजुएलन ऑयल और शिप्स को ब्लॉक करने के लिए जो क्यूबा की तरफ जा रहे थे. ट्रम्प ने एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑर्डर साइन कर दिया वेयर दे सेड दैट प्यूनिटिव टैरिफ्स वुड बी अप्लाइड ऑन एनी कंट्री सेलिंग ऑयल टू क्यूबा. यानी कि कोई क्यूबा को ऑयल बेच भी नहीं सकता, थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज जो हैं. तो वही है, ऑयल शॉर्टेज की वजह से क्यूबा को काफ़ी दिक्कत हो रही है. उनका 83% ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कम्स फ्रॉम ऑयल. एंड इंपोर्ट्स की बात करें तो 80% ऑफ इट्स फूड कम्स फ्रॉम इंपोर्ट. पावर ब्लैकआउट की वजह से उनका रेफ्रिजरेशन भी इम्पैक्ट होगा, फूड स्पॉइल भी होगा, शॉर्टेज भी बढ़ेगी, ब्लैकआउट्स भी बढ़ेंगे. सो या दीज आर द थिंग्स विच आर इम्पैक्टिंग इट. ह्यूगो चैवेज के टाइम पे वेनेजुएलन ऑयल की वजह से क्यूबा को बहुत हेल्प मिली. दे सप्लाइड ऑलमोस्ट 75% ऑफ क्यूबाज ऑयल इंपोर्ट्स बैक टिल 2-3 years. बट नाउ जो है मडूरो के अबडक्शन के बाद थिंग्स हैव बिकम वेरी डाइसी फॉर देम. देखते हैं क्या होता है आगे. We'll see. NSA के अंडर पर्सन कैन बी डिटेन्ड इन जेल फॉर अप टू 3 months. एक्सटेंड हो सकता है वो. यू कैन आस्क द कोर्ट टू एक्सटेंड इट. NSA के अंडर बेल मिलना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. पीपल स्टे इन जेल्स फॉर मल्टीपल ईयर्स अंडर NSA. ऐसा मतलब ठीक है, द फर्स्ट टर्म इज डेफिनेटली 3 months बट इट कैन बी एक्सटेंडेड इजीली. 18 mock is okay. Yes, just keep on working on the analysis, keep improving. सिदारा मैया बहुत जल्दी आंसर दिया, बहुत टाइम हो गया तो पूछे मुझे. मे बी यू जॉइन द स्ट्रीम लेट मिस्टर Koviam or Mr. Miss, I don't know. ठीक है. Our talks with Russia substantive and productive says Ukraine. आज WPL का फाइनल होना है. Delhi Capitals is going to go against Royal Challengers Bangalore. One is being led by Jemima Rodriguez. One is being led by Smriti Mandana. Let's see who wins the title today. Then और तो ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं है हमारे पास interesting in the sports section. With that, we come to the end of our newspaper. Let's come back to our PPT and discuss the 4 important articles which we have. Let's go for it. Manipur President's rule ends. Khemchand now new CM installment of BJP-led NDA government with a meaty leader at the helm brought an end to nearly a president's rule in Manipur. Year of President's rule. President's rule is the suspension of state government and its legislative assembly, placing the state under direct control of the central government, imposed under Article 356. We all know this. In case of failure of constitutional machinery of state, also called state emergency or constitutional emergency. Constitution does not clearly define failure of constitutional machinery. Exactly होता क्या है? It's a little vague. Subjective interpretation पे depend करता है, which can also result in misuse. ये कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल्स हैं. 355 इज द सेंटर्स ड्यूटी टू इंश्योर कि सब स्टेट्स सही से फंक्शन करें. 356 वी ऑल नो इज प्रेसिडेंट्स रूल. 365 इज इफ अ स्टेट डज नॉट कंप्लाई विद सेंटर्स डायरेक्शन, प्रेसिडेंट कैन डिक्लेयर दैट इट्स गवर्नमेंट कैन नॉट फंक्शन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली. क्या ग्राउंड्स हैं इसके प्रोक्लेमेशन के? प्रेसिडेंट कैन इम्पोज इट इफ दे आर सैटिस्फाइड दैट द स्टेट्स गवर्नेंस कैन नॉट कंटिन्यू कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली, ईदर एक्टिंग ऑन गवर्नर्स रिपोर्ट और ऑन इन्फॉर्मेशन ऑन देयर ओन डिस्क्रेशन. इफ अ state fails to comply with the directions, president's rule may be declared. So these are the provisions on how it happens. 355, 356 and 365. Then कुछ और important चीजें. Proclamation of state emergency must be approved by both houses of parliament within 2 months. Initially it lasts for 6 months and can be extended for up to 3 years with parliament's approval every 6 months. 44th Amendment Act कहता है the extension beyond 1 year if a national emergency is in force or if Election Commission of India certifies that इलेक्शंस कैन नॉट बी हेल्ड। तभी आप जो है 1 साल से बियॉन्ड एक्सटेंड कर सकते हो। अगर आपको 3 साल के बियॉन्ड एक्सटेंड करना है तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट लाना पड़ेगा, जैसे 67 और 68 अमेंडमेंट आए थे फॉर पंजाब ड्यूरिंग इट्स इंसर्जेंसी। So these are the regulations, constitutional provisions regarding imposing president's rule. Impact क्या होता है president's rule का? The president takes over control of the state functions with the governor acting on his behalf, supported by the chief secretary and appointed advisors. State legislature suspend हो जाती है, dissolve हो जाती है. Parliament exercise the law making authority or delegates it to the president or designated body. This is given in Article 357. The laws made during this period remain effective unless repealed by the state legislature. Financial control जो है president के पास चला जाता है from the state consolidated fund, but this expenditure must be subsequently approved by the parliament. फंडामेंटल राइट्स की बात करें तो दिस डज नॉट कर्ब फंडामेंटल राइट्स अनलाइक अ नेशनल इमरजेंसी, जहां पे आर्टिकल 19 के फ्रीडम्स आर सस्पेंडेड एंड अदर राइट्स एक्सेप्ट 20 एंड 21 मे बी कर्टेल्ड। 20 एंड 21 क्यों नहीं कर्टेल कर सकते? क्योंकि 20 टॉक्स अबाउट इलीगल डिटेंशन एंड 21 टॉक्स अबाउट राइट टू लाइफ। अगर राइट टू लाइफ को ही कर्टेल कर दोगे तो मतलब तो किसी की भी जान ले सकते हो आप। सो दैट इज व्हाई 20 एंड 21 कैन नॉट बी कर्टेल्ड इवन ड्यूरिंग एन इमरजेंसी। इंपॉर्टेंट टू नो दिस। ठीक है, नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल पे चलते हैं। जयशंकर रूबियो वेलकम ट्रेड डील, डिस्कस क्रिटिकल मिनरल एंड क्वाड कॉर्पोरेशन। Welcoming the trade deal, Mr. Jaishankar met US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington, where both sides agreed to formalize cooperation on critical minerals and taking forward their economic partnership. The meeting came 2 days after a call between Donald Trump and PM Modi, after which they announced a reduction in US tariffs on Indian goods to 18% and cancellation of 25% penalty tariffs for the purchase of Russian oil. He held the meeting ahead of attending the US critical mineral ministerial meeting that called for preferential trade zones to secure semiconductor supply chains in an effort to work around China's recent restrictions on trade in critical minerals and build alternate supply routes. They were invited to take membership of a grouping that will be shaped by US, including 50 countries. Jaishankar's visit to Washington is his 7th since Trump's re-election and is a move to reset ties and pick up engagements that were sidelined in last year, which includes the Quad and the Indo-Pacific Cooperation, critical minerals, semiconductor technology. India is also expected to be invited to join the US-led Pax Silica initiative. We have talked about this. This was launched last month. Well, India was possibly invited last month. US Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, had announced in January. India will host the AI Impact Summit in February, very important, where a high-level US delegation is expected. Meanwhile, government still hopes to host the Quad Summit this year, which was unable to do last year. Jaishankar discussed Quad cooperation with US Secretary Marco Rubio, and who has thus far not visited India. Pax Silica क्या है? This is a US-led initiative to build secure, resilient, and innovation-driven AI supply chain ecosystem through deep cooperation with global partners. Inaugural summit इसकी हुई थी in December 2025. It aims to reduce coercive dependency on a single country. Essentially यहाँ पे मतलब चाइना है. Protect AI critical minerals and enable aligned nations to develop and deploy transformative technologies. China currently dominates critical mineral supply chain needed for silicon and AI supply chain ecosystem, refining 60% of rare earth, lithium, cobalt, and other minerals. Global diversifications are accelerating after China's restriction on rare earth magnet disrupting the supply chains. कौन से कंट्रीज हैं इसमें? जापान है, कोरिया है, सिंगापुर है, नीदरलैंड्स है, यूके है, इजराइल है, यूएई है, and Australia, basically close allies of the US. Partner countries host key firms like Sony, Hitachi, Fujitsu, Samsung, SK Hynix, Temasek, DeepMind, MGX, Rio Tinto, and ASML, which power the global AI supply chain. Commitments and to joint projects and addressing AI supply chain vulnerabilities across sectors like minerals, semiconductor, fabrication, packaging, infra, energy, etc. इंडिया की बात करें तो अंडर द USD $10 billion इंडियन सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन 2021, इंडिया एम्स टू बिल्ड अ इंडिजिनस सेमीकंडक्टर इकोसिस्टम। 10 प्रोजेक्ट अप्रूव हो चुके हैं इन्वॉल्विंग 1.6 ट्रिलियन रुपीस का इन्वेस्टमेंट कवरिंग फैब्रिकेशन एंड पैकेजिंग। Talking about the denotified tribes, they are seeking constitutional recognition and separate census entities. क्या होती हैं denotified tribes? पहले ये देख लेते हैं हम। कहाँ पे लिखा है मैंने? यहीं पे लिखा है। Denotified tribes, nomadic tribes, or semi-nomadic tribes across the country are coming together to push for a separate column in Census 27. The demand is for constitutional recognition of the denotified tribes in the schedule on par with the existing classification for SC, ST, and OBCs. In Feb 27, we have a caste enumeration going for the first time in the census since 1931. 5 years after 1931 census, origin of scheduled caste list came into being, forming the Government of India's scheduled caste order. Half a century earlier, in 1871, definition, a colonial law had classified entire communities, particularly nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes, as criminals. After the law was repealed in 1952, these groups came to be known as denotified tribes. तो ब्रिटिशर्स ने नोटिफाई करी कुछ ट्राइब्स की ये ट्राइब्स जो हैं क्रिमिनल इंटेंट की हैं या क्रिमिनल बैकग्राउंड की हैं, तो इनको हम क्रिमिनल ट्राइब्स बुलाएंगे. नोमैडिक ट्राइब्स की मतलब एक जगह से दूसरी जगह घूमती रहती थी. एंड 1952 जब हमारा देश आज़ाद हो गया उसके कुछ साल बाद डी नोटिफाई कर दिया गया इन ट्राइब्स को, तो तब से इनको डी नोटिफाइड ट्राइब्स बुलाते थे. पहले नोटिफाई किया गवर्नमेंट ने, मतलब ब्रिटिशर्स ने, फिर हमने डी नोटिफाई किया. सोशल जस्टिस मिनिस्ट्री हैज नाउ रिकमेंडेड द ऑफिस ऑफ रजिस्ट्रार जनरल ऑफ इंडिया दैट दीज डी नोटिफाइड नोमैडिक ट्राइब्स टू बी इंक्लूडेड इन द सेंसस. रजिस्ट्रार जनरल ऑफ इंडिया के ऑफिस ने अग्री किया है टू इंक्लूड देम इन द नेक्स्ट ईयर्स कास्ट एक्सरसाइज and community leaders in North India in a virtual meeting on 30th January. The Criminal Tribes Act was first enacted in 1871, amended in 1924, before being repealed in August 31, 1952. 1871 का act कहता था that it was for the registration, surveillance and control of certain criminal tribes and eunuchs, describing criminal tribes as tribe, gang or class of people that are addicted to committing non-bailable offences. These communities were among the first to confront the British and sustain the struggle. That is why colonial government classified us as criminal tribes, said Mr. Sansi, who is a representative of a denotified tribe. एक Netflix पे टीवी सीरीज है Delhi Crime करके, आई थिंक सीजन 1 में या सीजन 2 में, आई थिंक देयर इज अ होल story around denotified tribes being picked up as accused in a particular case. I think season 2 है वो, देख सकते हो आप लोग बाद में. The previous National Commission for Denotified Tribes, headed by Bhiku Ramji Date, identified 1,200 such tribes, most of which have been assimilated in SC/ST OBC classifications over the past 70 years. 2017 की एक रिपोर्ट कहती है the Idate Commission listed 267 denotified tribe communities that have not been classified as such. Dr. Lodhi, who was the Deputy Secretary and Director to the Idate Commission, said most of the DNTs have been amalgamated, mixed in SC/ST OBC list, and they are not able to compete in these categories because of how marginalized they are. Mr. Sansi said it was politics that led to them being misclassified. Despite schemes for DNT run by both state and center, such as the seed scheme, only a minuscule percentage are getting benefits, mainly because government are not willing to issue DNT certificates to them. That's what the leaders are saying. The seed scheme क्या है? This is the scheme for economic empowerment of denotified nomadic or semi-nomadic communities. It was launched in Feb 2022 by Social Justice Ministry to provide free competitive exam coaching to these students, provide health insurance to families, uplift clusters through livelihood initiatives, provide financial assistance for housing. National Commission was also formed, NCDNT, in 2006 by the then government, headed by Balkrishna Siddharmaiah Renke, and submitted its report in 2008, where they held it's an irony that these tribes somehow escaped the attention of our constitution makers. Idate Commission जो बना था, that was made in 2015 under chairmanship of Shri Bhiku Ramji Idate, which was tasked to identify and properly list these communities in different states and evaluate their progress and development. And based on the recommendation of this commission, they set up the Development and Welfare Board for DNTs, SNTs, and NTs in 2019. So that's the whole story for the denotified tribes. अब ये कह रहे हैं कि इस सेंसस में हमारा अलग से क्लासिफिकेशन होना चाहिए ताकि इनको अलग से बेनिफिट्स दिए जा सके. Lastly, US trade deal, we already discussed most of it. This editorial talks about how the trade architecture resembles a newly built expressway, anchored in strategic trade agreements that will enable faster and predictable movement for trade. They talk about the concluding of European Union wala FTA, UK wala FTA, and now India has secured a consequential trade deal with US, which is an important outcome in expanding the network. And agreements with EFTA, UK, EU will give India preferential market access to the whole of Europe. Agreements with Australia and New Zealand make India a key partner for the Pacific. Agreements with Oman and UAE provide access to West Asia. The latest deal with US deepens India's stronghold in America, a clear reflection of India's deep integration with the world. अभी की बात करें तो US is the largest import market in the world, India's biggest export destination. 1/5 of India's total exports go to the US. Indian exports to the US span across multiple sectors like apparel, gems, jewelry, agricultural products, footwear, leather, other manufacturing products, supporting employment and manufacturing chains in India. With elevated tariff of 50% last year, exporters were at a disadvantage, we all know. US is world's largest apparel import market, with Indian exports now facing 18% tariffs, lower than competitors like Vietnam and Bangladesh, thus regaining competitiveness. Similar dynamics apply to gems and jewelry, where margins are very price sensitive, as well as to marine exploration, but margins are very sensitive. Pakistan as well as other ASEAN countries, which builds up India's export sectors and supply the country's long-term goal of becoming a global manufacturing hub. Encourages joint ventures, tech partnerships, investment in high-value sectors, innovation, skill development, and consolidates global economic leadership, strengthening the country's capacity for high-value international partnerships. From a strategic POV, closer economic ties complement cooperation. Wider forums like the Quad, where supply chain resilience and trusted partnerships are central priorities. With that, we come to the end of the analysis. Vocab for the day is first word is garble. Garble का मतलब होता है कुछ ऐसा distort, खिचड़ी पका देना. To change so much as to create a wrong impression or alter the meaning of something. Distort, misrepresent, mix up are synonyms. Explain, interpret, clarify are antonyms. These papers had some garbled version of the story. Altered, basically, distorted. Next word is derelict. Derelict मतलब होता है careless, neglectful, failing to give proper care and attention. The guards were judged derelict in their duty. Careful, conscientious, and attentive are antonyms. The last word is conjectural. Conjectural मतलब based on andaza, based on speculation, based or involving conjecture. Speculative, suppositional, theoretical. Antonyms are actual, factual, real. Much of racial history of Madagascar remains conjectural. So conjectural is based on speculation, not based on evidence. Derelict is not being careful, being neglectful. And garble is distorting something, altering the meaning of something. With that, we come to the end of the Hindu analysis. But I want all of you guys to join the next stream, which is on law as a career option, where we'll discuss all the possible careers you guys can have after law school, and also the competitive exams you can appear for to get into law school in the first place. So jaldi se aa jao dusri stream pe. I'll join you guys in 30 seconds. Let's see you all there.